On this episode, we take off the intake manifold, valve covers, and put some new spark plugs in our 2003 Honda Accord V6 Coupe manual. Welcome back to the Auto Obsessive Garage. Chadwick with you again for another installment of Project Enthusiast Spec Accord. That is our 2003 Honda Accord V6 Coupe with a manual transmission. Probably the best part of that car. Anyway, what are we doing today? Well, it's time to take care of some of these leaks under the hood. And to address that, we are going to remove the intake manifold completely. And then we're going to remove both valve cover gaskets because there are some leaks there. Go figure on an older car. But we're also going to take care of the spark plugs while we have everything apart. Real easy to access it at that time. So let's get to it. Let's remove those parts and get some new plugs in our Accord. And the very first project we're going to do on this Accord V6 is replace these failed hood struts. And that's for my own sanity because I am really sick of propping up the hood with my yardstick. So back to that hood strut. Really simple. You've got two 10mm holding it on here. Then you have a metal clamp that you kind of need to pop off, and it's like a ball socket type deal, and you can pop it right off. We have two replacements. There's one on each side. Let's knock it out. Now to test our hard work. Oh, those are strong. Beautiful. Now it's time to get this intake manifold off. We are going to be doing the valve cover gaskets, but we also need to replace these gaskets. As we saw, there was signs of oil leaking up here, which is an indicator these gaskets are bad. There is one gasket set underneath this plate, and then another under this intake manifold. So we're going to take all this off. Again, throttle body gasket, air filter assembly. We're going to go ahead and pull this out too, so we can get this out of the way. We need to remove the throttle body. Again, I don't plan to remove the throttle body entirely. I'm just gonna get it separated from the intake manifold. At that time, we can also clean the throttle body area, which is always good to do on higher mileage cars. So let's get this air box out of here first. Tools you're gonna need for this job, guys, to start off, 10mm for all these, something to pry off some vacuum hoses, some pliers, and then a Phillips head screwdriver to get the air filter box off. Pulling the throttle body off is removing two 12mm nuts, two 12mm bolts. And that's fine, we just need it to separate a little bit. This is the gasket we're going to be replacing, obviously. Time to remove the intake manifold. We'll start with this little plate, again, 10mm. All right, the plate should be ready to come off. A little gnarly under there, not too bad. You're gonna see some old oil residue, of course. Here's the old gasket. It is a thin metal gasket. It was pushing by this, so it's a good time to replace. I see people reusing this. That's just a recipe for disaster. You're not gonna fix any leaks, so we'll put the new gasket in there. Now, before we remove the rest of this intake manifold, you're gonna go ahead and find any hoses you have connected. So clearly, vacuum hoses need to be pulled. Any sensor connectors that need to be taken off so you can remove this whole unit. So you got a couple other things mounted up to it. Obviously a bracket back here. Just walk around the whole top of the engine here and take a gander at what you're gonna need. Obviously you gotta pull this sensor. So anything like this that you find. There you go. Any sensor like that, any vacuum lines, any kind of mounting brackets. You got some big vacuum lines here on the back of the engine we're gonna be pulling. So just make sure everything's off. You don't wanna be trying to rip up the intake manifold with lines still attached to it. So let's go around the engine and take everything off. All right, here we go. Perfect. And we got to clean up a little bit under here, obviously. We are going to replace this. This is the old intake manifold gasket. A lot of people reuse this stuff, but again, not a fan. While we're right here, why not? All right, cool. I want to get a vacuum in here and clean all this up. You don't want anything falling down in here, that's for sure. That's looking a little cleaner, huh? All right, we're gonna start with the front valve cover here. Take these covers off, you just simply turn these 90 degrees. Banging, banging. Look out, you do have an O2 sensor wire here clipped in the front. Take those off. All right, to get these plug wires out of the way, we're gonna need to start loosening all this action up so you can actually disconnect the coils. The 10mm bolt right here needs to come out. And you can simply pull this to the front of the engine area. Now it's up to you. You can take this bracket off if you want to really get in there and clean, but you can keep it on there. So as you can see, you're gonna see new vacuum lines under here. Here's one right here. So as you go, again, same theory as the intake manifold, walk around each valve cover, front and rear, and make sure you're disconnecting everything you need to take off before you try to pull it off. I do like to remove the dipstick rather than break it off, so you can simply pull it out like so. Set that in a nice place. Yeah, those are nice and hard, so that's an indicator that no one's probably done these in a while, so we're gonna be replacing these too. Valve cover off. I think I'm gonna use a bungee cord to secure this out of the way. All right, doesn't look too bad. Nice golden color. This is a 219,000 mile engine, so I'm not seeing a lot of deposits, not seeing a lot of like carbon or chunks of oil, so it looks like this guy was taken care of. Time for the rear valve cover. Now it's not really that much different than the front valve cover. It's just obviously a little more challenging to get to. We are gonna pull the coil packs out now just because I don't think I'm gonna have the clearance with the strut bar, and I don't wanna remove the strut bar if I don't have to. We'll see about that, but same thing, you're gonna go around, obviously undo this so you can get your wires out of the way. Some vacuum lines still remain, and obviously pull the coils out, and then work your way around, get all the bolts again, and we should just be able to lift it up and kind of hopefully squeeze it out from under there, but we'll see what we have to do. Let's get into it. I did add a little lighting back there because it is dark so you can see everything. All right, looks like everything's disconnected. Let's give it our love taps. There we go. And now we have the intake manifold off, both valve covers. We are styling here, guys. It's looking pretty good under here. Both valve cover areas look really nice. Valve train looks all nice. No chunks, no gunking, no anything. So again, I do believe this was a highly taken care of car. It did have all its regular maintenance done. So, well, it's time for some gaskets, I'd say. Oh, and some cleaning, of course. We gotta clean up the valve cover. Of course, that intake manifold's getting a nice old cleaning inside. Step one is to clean the valve covers, unless you're some kind of savage. Once you do that, it's time to replace all these gaskets. You've got the rubber gaskets inside the spark plug area, these little rings. You've obviously got the gasket that goes around the end of the valve cover, and then we have those metal ones for the screws that hold in the valve cover. So got ourselves a nice kit here. Now any complete kit should include these. These are the ones for the bolts. They're kind of tricky to pull off, but we'll replace those because those can harden over time and allow oil to get up past them. Here are the spark plug rings and then the valve cover gasket itself. Obviously there's enough to do 2 valve covers because that's how many we have. So that's what we're gonna do next. Holy shoot. I shot it over my Miata, that was crazy. All right, time to drive in the new seals. We're gonna try to squeeze them in there if we can. I'm gonna get them seated all the way in there. They should be a tight fit. Some would say oil tight fit. And just like that, we're in business. New valve cover. New spark plug O-rings installed. Next up are these little brass gaskets that we need to put on those screws. You don't want to leak at that point, so let's go ahead and install these at this time. They can be a little bit of a rough thing to install. All right, time to replace these fun little things. So what you're gonna want to do is separate the rubber from the metal, like so. And these are pretty crusty. So we could also heat them up, try that again, or we can try just breaking them off. You can cut them off too. All right, time to get dangerous. Okay, take the blade out. And we're basically just gonna try to cut a slit. Of course, I'm doing the hardest one first to show you guys. The larger ones have more room to play, but we'll start off. We keep it real here in the Auto Obsessive Garage. We'll start with the hardest one first. Probably could use a pair of pliers. And just pry it off like so. And now this metal part should actually just come right off. Ba-boom. Now pressing the new ones on, we'll try to use just oil and slide it on, but sometimes you really need to use some force. All right, so we've got all the old ones off, all the old gaskets and metal rings, and I've actually got one on. So you can see it's nice and shiny here. The secret to putting this on is lubing it up with some silicone lubricant. Whatever spray you choose, just go ahead and soak that on, press it on firmly, and you should be good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and press on the rest of these. And there we go, guys, a complete valve cover set of those. So let's go ahead, set that aside. We'll do the same for the other valve cover. I'll probably skip that part of showing you because you guys don't want to see this twice. But that's how you do it. Pretty simple stuff. All right, friends, what we're looking at now is the intake manifold off our Honda Accord. This is the J Series engine, the 3.0. So yeah, we could slap some new gaskets on there, put it back in the car, do this whole job pretty quick, but it's pretty funky in here. And at 220,000 miles, there's a little bit of carbon in the intake tracks there in the plenum. So, I mean, it's a little, got some kind of gunky stuff down in here too, which happens, looks like coffee ground. So I'm not really cool with having an engine with that kind of stuff. So a lot of combustion stuff gets trapped in here. So let's just clean it up, because of course we're gonna clean it up. Well, it's time to replace this throttle body gasket. As you can see, it looks pretty original. It's very crusty. It is just an invitation for disaster if you go ahead and throw that back on the car like that. You do not want a vacuum leak right there. So we're gonna go ahead and use a razor blade and get that off of there. So here's our intake manifold. Definitely a lot cleaner down in there. As you can see, I'm pretty happy with it. It's not perfect, but it's pretty dang good. It looks a lot better than it did. And it will be a little cleaner when we run it again. Also cleaned up where that old throttle body gasket was, so that's all ready for a new throttle body gasket. Yeah, super happy. Used some brake cleaner and some other chemicals to clean out the runners and everything, so at least our intake manifold will be nice and relatively carbon free. We won't have those chunks floating around in there anymore, so awesome. Nice little bonus. It's time to start putting this thing back together, I think, guys. So we're gonna put those valve covers on first. Go ahead and put those back on, and then this guy goes in. All new gaskets all around. Let's do it. Well, before we put everything back together, why not do the spark plugs while we're in here? I don't know when the last time these were changed out, so let's do it up. Now, these are the Iridium power ones from Denso. NGK also makes an Iridium one that folks like in these cars, so let's throw these bad boys in. We've got 6 of them. I know this is a 4-pack. I've got 2 single packs. Don't worry, guys. I got this covered. So we're gonna pull out our old plugs, check them out, see how they look, and we'll put these new guys in. 5/8 inch socket on these guys. All right, new plugs installed. The rears were a little bit of a pain in the butt, working around the strut bar and everything else, but boom, new plugs.